What's going on, everyone? So the Toronto Raptors might be the answer to all of the Lakers' problems. So one of the big things that has came out recently, the Lakers really want to lean in heavily into the defensive side of things, right? The Lakers want to really kind of push to be one of the best, if not the best, defensive teams. But you still need a balance, right? Now, Nikola Vucevic, somebody like that, he's a guy that doesn't really give you much on the defensive side of things. Offensively, yes, he'd give you a ton offensively and rebounding, but interior defense, not really the thing that you'd be looking for. But with Jared Vanderbilt's return, right, he's a guy that can really kind of help alleviate some of the pressure if you were to go get a guy like that. But it'd be nice to just have that defensive center. Now, a Miles Turner, perfect world, right? Like, he fits both, right? Because he can give you offense, gives you floor spacing, big man that can knock down the three ball, right? But also protect the rim and defend, right? Even when Anthony Davis goes to the bench, you'd still have that rim protector, that shot blocker that can help alleviate that. Him and Anthony Davis would give you the best defensive pairing in the front court in the entire league, right? Like, you're talking about just like the Lakers would be reformed in a lot of ways. But the next closest thing that is available, right? Because obviously it's about what's available, would be like guys like Jakob. Jakob is a guy that can slot in, big physical presence on the interior, that can make plays, can, self-create a little bit, as well as a guy that can defend at the rim, get you some steals, right, can bang with the big boys, right? So Jakob is another guy that could kind of make a lot of sense in that regard, right? So regardless, I believe the Lakers are going to be patient. I think the Lakers are going to take their time and kind of like, which direction do we want to go, right? I think if all else fails, they'll probably end up with a Nikola Vucevic. Now, they're still supposedly very active and heavy on trying to acquire Walker Kessler. Clint Capella, I'd stay away from. I really think also it's easier to just get everything with one team than it is to piece things together, right? So I really think that, what do the Lakers need still, right? Jared Vanderbilt coming back does help alleviate some of that perimeter help, but it would be nice if you could still get that other piece. Well, Bruce Brown, I still think makes a ton of sense for this team, right? Like I mentioned, Jakob gives you that big physical defensive interior presence that can slot alongside Anthony Davis and is still young enough to be a piece for the next 5 years plus, right? And then you have guys like Agbaji, who have been recently linked to the Lakers. There were some murmurs and rumors of the Lakers potentially getting Bruce Brown and Agbaji in a trade for, I think it was a pick swap in 2 seconds, I think was what it was that you'd get for that. 24-year-old, sizable, 6'6", versatile wing that can defend multiple positions, and he's also shooting 40% from three this season, right? So they're a team that has multiple, and then they have like other little trickled pieces, right? Kelly Olynyk, you could argue, would make some sense for them. But if the Lakers can focus and kind of hone in on like one individual team, and something that I've talked about in the past is like, like you kind of look at the landscape. Look at the guys and the teams that they're targeting, right? It's pairings on each team, right? It's like a Jeremy Grant and a Robert Williams, a Bruce Brown and a Jakob, Alonzo Ball and a Nikola Vucevic, so on and so forth. And you kind of go down that line and you can see the potential of like, okay, getting like two quality end guys. Well, the Raptors are another team that I just think solves a lot of that, right? Like if you were to get Miles Turner, yeah, that's great. Like, you go get Miles Turner. I want to be very clear. Whatever you have to do, go get Miles Turner. But what else can you get in that type of, like, what other piece actually makes sense for you to get if you were trying to get anything? Where, like, again, even in Chicago, you could get Chris Smith. You could get a Io, right? A Torrey Craig. Could you get a Kobe White, right? Because supposedly there's talks about them trading one or the other, right? Like there's several pieces on that. A Chris Dort, right? Like you got several guys out there that could make some sense for the Lakers to go and acquire, give you some depth, give you some versatility out there, and do multiple things. Now you could go like the smaller route, I guess, because it really boils down to like, what is Anthony Davis willing to do, right? Like, is there a compromise, or is he like, no, go get a starting center? Is he like, hey, as long as you go get a center where I can play, 25 minutes at the 4, I just don't want to play full time at the 5 every game after game after game, and where we can start at some time. Can you get away with like a backup center still? Right? Because if you can go get like a Day'Ron Sharp or like, an Andre Drummond, if the Sixers really are going to tear it down, well, then now you don't need to go spend $20 million on a center, right? Again, unless the Miles Turner is available. If Miles Turner is available, go get Miles Turner. But if Miles Turner is available, right, like you don't have to go and sell the farm in order to do that. You can go and just bring in like a Bruce Brown and an Abaji, right? So now, like, Jakob Poeltl might cost too much, because the problem that Lakers are having, because they've inquired about Jakob Poeltl, is that the Raptors are reluctant to trade him. Because it's like, yeah, they want a tank, but it's like he's still young enough to be a key piece for them for the next, few years, or you can always trade him later on down the road. He's still got 2 more years after this year at $19.5 million. So his contract doesn't change. There is no adjustment. Kind of seems like they'll only trade him if the deal is too good to be true, right? And you don't want to give up any key pieces, right? And is he by himself worth the 2 first? If that's the case, you might as well just get Bruce Brown, or not Bruce Brown, go get a Walker Kessler, and then go get Walker Kessler, and then just go trade for Bruce Brown for seconds. And can you get an Abaji? If you can get Abaji for a pick swap and then Bruce Brown for the 2 seconds, trade your 2 first, go get Walker Kessler, and then boom, bring him in, remove the protection on the 3rd pick, bring in Walker Kessler, bring in a Bruce Brown, bring in an Abaji, boom, problem solved. And you still have Jared Vanderbilt and all these other guys, right? You're in great shape at that point, right? Like you at that point, I think you're a contender, right? But if push comes to shove and it's like, okay, we can't get a Miles Turner, Walker Kessler's too much. They're willing to settle for a first for, a Jakob Poeltl, then maybe you kind of re-pivot and go, okay, like that's the team we need to work with, right? Because we can get a Bruce Brown, so you get a guard, point of attack guard, you get a 3-and-D wing, and you could get a center, right? And a physical, versatile interior presence. Now he doesn't stretch the floor or anything like that, and he's not like this like super elite offensive guy, but like a guy like Nikola Vucevic, he can score from pretty much anywhere on the basketball court, but it's more of the defense. And again, if the Lakers are leaning heavily into the defensive side of things, and that's their focus, that's their main priority here, is just being the best defensive team we can be, then a guy like a Jakob Poeltl just makes more sense than a Nikola Vucevic, right? But I still think, like, if you were to go get a Jakob Poeltl for a first or something, is that worth more, or does that make more sense than going and trading seconds for a Nikola Vucevic? That I don't know, right? I think it also depends what else you can get from Chicago, right? Because, again, if you could kind of divvy it up, like you stack up, because you want to stack up these teams, right? If you stack up kind of the Raptors and what the potential could be for a package compared to Chicago, compared to Portland, compared to Washington, compared to all these teams that have been linked, I still think Chicago's is probably the best. Because again, you think Lonzo, and Ayo, a Torrey Craig, a Chris Dort, a Smith, right? Like you got Vu, right? There's like 6-7 guys that make sense on that team. Where next in line, right? I think you could argue, a Raptors team, because you could get a guy. The only reason I wouldn't put Portland up there is because, 1, Jeremy Grant is overpriced. 2, Robert Williams just can't stay healthy. Robert Williams might be the ideal scenario, but he just can't stay healthy. So again, you kind of just go down the list, and the Raptors are probably, in my opinion, some people might have it better. Some people might be like, hey, that's the best package, right? If you get a Bruce Brown and a Jakob Poeltl, then let's go. And then if you add in an Abaji or whatever, right, now you're in great shape, right? Like that could be a potential, right? Like, but I think I think that Chicago has better overall pieces for what we want and what we want to do than Toronto, right? I think they just have there's more combinations with Chicago than I think there is with Toronto. But Toronto, I don't think is that far off, right? And again, there's still other guys like Kelly Olynyk stuff, but I like Kelly Olynyk and Bruce Brown. Is that solve your probably not? Right? Like, I think, again, it kind of comes down to a couple things. What is Anthony Davis is there a compromise with AD? Is it like, hey, does it have to be a starting center? Or can it be somebody that comes off the bench? And then obviously, like, hey, when we play Denver, we'll start him. Right? Because that could change things. Right? So then maybe you're not investing the $20 million to go get one of these big premier centers, right? Maybe you're investing that money into the perimeter to be that better defensive unit, to be that better defensive team, and then just kind of, again, going and getting a Jonas Valanciunas, right? Like, but even then, like I said, Toronto still makes the most sense because you get a Bruce Brown and a Baji, and then still we'll get a Jonas Valanciunas, right? So I think no matter how you slice it, all roads outside of Chicago, I think all roads kind of lead towards the Raptors, right? I think all roads kind of lead towards like, hey, like they have everything we need. And based on the identity that the Lakers want to create, that's something that could maybe make sense and we can maybe get something done here, right? Like that's kind of where I lean in that regard. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion and I pass a question on to you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? Anything, what are your thoughts? Do you agree? Do you think like Toronto is the destination that is the best place? Do you think no, Toronto isn't, right? Like go get Chicago or go get, Portland or go get one of these other deals. Do you have like a specific, like what would you want just a Jakob Poeltl? Would you want a Bruce Brown and Jakob Poeltl? Would you want Bruce Brown, Jakob Poeltl and a Baji? Just want Bruce Brown and a Baji, right? Got multiple combinations. What would you like to hear? I'd love to hear it, so let me know down in the comments below. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. So me enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one. Thank you.